Hi there, John Moore here, and I'm a shamanic teacher from the state of Maine in the US, and I want to talk about shamanic drumming, what it is. Why do shamans use drums? Is there something about the drum that is special, and all of those things? So, probably more than anything else, probably more than any other tool or symbol that is associated with shamans, is the drum. And the reason for this is that many shamanic cultures throughout the world use drumming or rhythm to enter into the shamanic state of consciousness. And I'll talk about what that means in a moment. So, drums are used almost universally, but not all shamanic cultures use drums. Some use other ways of generating the correct state of mind for shamanic journeying or trance or altered states of consciousness, whatever term you want to use. Some will use click sticks or rattles or chanting or dancing or whatever, but there is a very specific rhythm that we're trying to generate with the drum. So, cultures that use drums tend to use what's called a hoop drum. A hoop drum is, a hoop of wood or some other stiff substance with a hide or drum head that is stretched over it. This happens to be a synthetic drum, and so it's not a traditional hide drum, which I have, but not next to me at the moment. And many will use a beater rather than playing with their hands. We see this with Native American tribes. We see this in Mongolia, Siberia, and other places in Europe. The hoop drum is fairly universal. There are hoop drums in the Middle East, in Africa, all throughout Europe, the Americas. So this is a pretty ancient tool, and our really brilliant ancestors figured out how to use this tool to drive a trance, to drive a correct trance. There's a very specific shamanic state of consciousness that we only really know about now because we are able to hook people up to machines. There's in the past couple of years, there's been some research where they hooked shamanic practitioners doing a drum journey up to EEG machines, and their state of consciousness, at least their brainwave patterns and which parts of their brains were particularly active were able to be measured. And the shamanic state is completely unique. It is close to somebody doing magic mushrooms, otherwise known as psilocybin, but it's not exactly the same thing. So, what's important about this rhythm? And again, this was discovered thousands, if not tens of thousands of years before we had machines that could measure brain waves. But our brilliant ancestors figured out that if they used a very specific pace or rhythm when they hit their drum, that it would alter their mind and allow them to take flight in the spirit world and to communicate with spirits. Now, we know today that this represents a brainwave state or a type of brainwave that predominantly is called theta. Theta brainwaves, so your brain operates in waves like, like radio waves or any other kinds of waves. And there are different levels. And when we're in a normal sort of everyday state of consciousness, we're usually in a beta state. When we relax a little bit, where we're daydreaming or we're right before we're about to fall asleep, we're in what's called an alpha state. Now, down between 4 and 7 cycles per second, we enter into a brain state called theta. Theta brain waves are that slower 4 to 7 means up and down cycles per second. That's fairly slow. It's not the slowest, right? The slowest is something called delta, but theta seems to allow people to start to separate their consciousness from their bodies and travel. There's been research that when there are psychics who are very able to hit with some degree of accuracy in their readings, and when they make statements that are very accurate, they are in a predominant theta brainwave state. So this theta brainwave state seems to help us connect with the spirit world, even with the divine, right? Really, really important to be able to drive that. Now, not again, not every culture uses shamanic drumming, but many, many do. It is really common. It's probably the most common way that shamanic cultures go into trance. We also might use something like a rattle. This is my shamanic rattle. Somebody made this for me. It was a lovely gift. The double-headed rattle, but there are many. You'll see gourd rattles. You see people using click sticks. In Australia, you'll see them using the didgeridoo. So different sort of um, sonic instruments. So how do these instruments, how do these rhythms create the correct brainwave state? Well, there's something, again, we know about only now in the modern ages because we have machines that can measure brain waves. But there's something called entrainment, meaning your brain will respond to a rhythm by mimicking it. So if you play, if I were to play faster on my drum, mimicking an alpha state or a beta state, your brain would naturally seek out that state and start to show brain waves in that state. This is why music is such an effective tool for changing our consciousness, for generating certain emotions and generating certain states. There's something called trance music, right? But even without that, music can make us happy. It can be melancholy. It can have all of these feelings, and music really, really changes us. It's why the music industry exists, right? We wouldn't listen to the stuff if it didn't make us happy or feel good or feel better or sometimes even feel worse, feel sad in certain ways. So music, not just rhythm, but music can make us feel certain ways. Rhythm is a big part of that. This is why a lot of music in specific genres will be measured in certain amounts of beats per minute, right? Certain types of dance music will be measured in certain types of beats per minute, right? So that it's creating that specific effect that we're going for. So in this case, for shamanic state of consciousness, you want drumming, you want a fairly clear signal that is between 4 and 7 cycles per second, or hertz, otherwise known as hertz. And there can be other things. It can be hidden behind some other music or whatever, but you want a predominant beat that is driving that those brainwaves, those theta brainwaves. So that is just a bit about shamanic drumming. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel. You can also join as a member and get lots of members only videos. I've been coming out with more and more of those that are short, practical little lessons, things that you can take away and do on your own. And so check that out, and I will see you very soon.